Good Wednesday afternoon, Dog Nation. Welcome into Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. Back in the saddle with us again is Dog Nation's recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. Over the course of the next hour, very interesting conversation take place with us. We'll get into a new name for our top targets, I've been told, and this one could be of significant movement. We'll let Jeff Sintel explain more of that coming up. But Jeff, before we get to that, I do want to welcome you back to the show and also start with a topic that we addressed last week a bit. You were with us in an interview form as a part of Before the Hedges last week, and you said some very strong statements about five-star linebacker Noah Sewell, the way that Georgia entertained him for his official visit, the way the nature of this recruiting is unfolding thus far. And I think if a Georgia fan was listening carefully to you a week ago, he should have, or she should have, felt pretty confident about the position that Georgia's in with Sewell right now. We'll hear from Sewell in his own words in just a moment, but as a way of kind of setting the stage for that, you know, what makes you feel, because we hear a lot of recruits glow after visits to UGA. What makes you feel that when it comes to Sewell, this thing is real with him and the Dogs at the moment?
Well, to me, it's a lot of, I guess, the fundamental nature of the way you understand his recruiting. The Sewells are a no-nonsense family, and they don't believe in taking any visits to a school that's not a serious contender. And Noah Sewell and his family have told me that for that family even to take an official visit, Brandon, to the University of Georgia, that meant that mom and dad have already given Noah their blessing to attend that school. Because the unofficial visit, and I hope everybody caught this in our reporting this week, for Noah Sewell, the unofficial visit was the fundamental structure, kind of the business end of their looking at Georgia. What happens there is they go look at the dorms, they look at the weight rooms, they look at the locker rooms, they go through the campus tours, they meet with academic advisors. That was all of the nuts and bolts and the meat and potatoes of consideration. This second visit, Brandon, was all about seeing a game day, seeing what it looked like. I think Georgia did okay there. And then the second biggest thing for him was just getting a very strong fraternal kinship, plugged-in bond with the guys he might potentially be playing with. And I think we said on the world-famous Dog Nation Daily program earlier this week that I think Georgia has shot a 65, 66 on these two visits, the unofficial and the official with Noah Sewell. And if somebody else can go lower than that, then they'll probably end up signing him. But Georgia has put themselves in a mighty strong position to land Noah Sewell.
So for some additional context on what Jeff said there, let me let you hear Sewell in his own words, as recently spoken to Jeff Sintel. It's part of a story that you probably read at dognation.com. Here is Sewell reflecting back on his own visit to Georgia and kind of the nature of his relationship with the UGA and how it's grown here in recent months. Here is Sewell.
I just love how Georgia, how they run things. I love the people. I love the people inside of Georgia. It's a really family environment over there.
What would you say was the bigger visit for you in Georgia? Was it the 3-day unofficial over the summer, or was it this?
Yeah, that was the big thing, the 3-day. You just get everything. So just get out there and see everything, the facility and everything. And then, like, when I'm this official, the main part was just the game day experience and how it feel like. I just said it's something different. It's something you'll never seen before. You'll never, like, if you go to Georgia, a home game, that whole stadium, the whole stadium will be packed, and it's just a different feeling.
Interesting to hear Sewell kind of rave over the game day environment as much as he does there. And Jeff, I guess my question would be is, okay, that sounds great. Sewell really liked his visit to Georgia, really impressed with the game day environment. We've certainly gotten the sense, based on some of the things that you've reported in the past, the family has felt comfortable here at UGA for a while. I've always felt like this was a challenging, difficult recruitment because of the fact that Sewell lives in Utah. He's got brothers that played college football mostly on the West. From a cultural standpoint, we haven't seen Polynesian players at Georgia before. I think that's also at least an issue that you'd have to consider, although I guess the Sewells themselves have said that won't be a big deal for them at all. So with all that now kind of there in the forefront, what's next here? What happens next between Georgia and Sewell?
Well, I hope people can kind of sift through the lines of that story, because Noah Sewell announced the top 8, but he really only has 3 official visits scheduled. One is to Texas A&M for the Alabama game. The other one is to Oregon for an undetermined opponent. And it's kind of funny, Brandon. Oregon doesn't really have a strong home game left on the schedule. So they're going to probably have to go see Oregon play a lesser opponent at home. I guess Dog Nation would read into that it's going to be awfully hard for Oregon to recreate the atmosphere of a Georgia Auburn or a Georgia South Carolina or a Georgia Texas A&M, much less a Georgia Notre Dame. And those are the only 3 officials that are scheduled. Those are the only 3 on the books. And he would like to have his decision made by the end of his senior season.
So listen, just given that, the fact that those are the only official visits that are out there, the fact that the clock is ticking for him, if you're a Georgia fan, I think that makes you feel pretty good about the situation right now. But obviously, nothing's over in the world of recruiting until it is over. But pretty interesting stuff to think about when it comes to Noah Sewell, and really good reporting from Jeff Sentell. It's Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Dog Nation's recruiting insider, Jeff Sentell. And by the way, we are getting ready for Halloween. That means you want to think about Kroger in order to be able to do that. You can download digital coupons on the Kroger website, that's Kroger.com, or the Kroger app, and start saving here very soon. October 4th and 5th, you can save on some big saving. Essentials like Kellogg cereal, party-sized chips. Also, as we said before, extra 25% on Halloween home merchandise, including costumes, decor, and so much more. This is the time of year my kids are definitely starting to pick out those Halloween costumes. A chance to save 25% on that. That's great savings. So check out the Kroger app or Kroger.com for more details on that. Now, with that said, we'll transition to where we always like to go here in the early stages of our program. A look at those top targets for Georgia in the class of 2020. Sewell has been near the top virtually every time we've done this list for quite some time. And Jeff, I'm guessing nothing's going to change on that front here today either.
Ooh, what if Noah went up to number 1, Brandon? Would that make you think about your Halloween costume a little bit?
I think some of the Keely Ringo faction of our constituency might have some questions to answer and ask when it comes to that. So without further ado, let's kind of find out where things are. Top target, is it Ringo? Is it Sewell? Yeah, Ringo remains up there, and we kind of joked about this. No doubt Ringo, the cornerback from Arizona, probably a little bit wishing he could have been a part of the atmosphere that was the Notre Dame game. He's not committed to UGA, but he certainly had great affinity for the program, and that's been well documented. I know he would have loved to have seen what the Georgia Bulldogs and its fans put together for that Notre Dame game 2 Saturdays ago.
Yeah, great affinity, Brendan. I think that's a good way to describe it. The Notre Dame game was about the only big Georgia recruiting event that Keely Ringo has missed since mid-January. At a program there in Swaro, everybody get this right, Swaro, it's kind of like SWARO, that is, took a couple losses so far this year, but they're trying to defend their 6-time state championship there in Arizona, just outside of Scottsdale.
All right, so there you go. Top target on the list, 5-star cornerback Keely Ringo. How about the next name on the list? I'm guessing it's going to be Sewell again. We talked about him a moment ago. And Jeff, to your credit, you have had Sewell up here, positioned near the top for a long time. I think that the stuff you saw this summer, going back to the opening, and it's kind of the stuff that you've learned about him as you've studied up on him and talked to him in the recruiting ranks, you have definitely been a big believer in Sewell now for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think the reason why Keely stays number 1 is I just keep forecasting the need for Georgia to have 3 or 4 elite cornerbacks to match with a Clemson down the line, an Ohio State down the line, and an Alabama down the line in those big December ball games. But with respect to Mr. Sewell, and one other point I want to make is the official visit, the game day atmosphere was incredible. But for Sewell, the more important thing for him was the paintball game that they played on the Sunday of the official visit. Noah got together, they played paintball with other members of the Georgia linebacker unit. Also a couple of DBs showed up. And for him, when you ask him what's the thing when he closes his eyes and he thinks about Georgia, the first thing that comes to mind, and the big thing that comes to mind for him at Georgia, is the relationships among the linebacker group, how no one hates on each other, everybody competes against one another, and everybody wants to see everyone excel. That's the impression that Georgia has made. And one last thing on Noah, if you ask Glenn Schumann what would be the scariest Halloween costume he could come up with in terms of a linebacker for the future of Georgia football, I would probably bet that a Noah Sewell costume would make a whole lot of sense, because Noah Sewell, folks, I think one member of our forum termed it accurately, where they said Noah Sewell looks like Troy Polamalu ate Troy Polamalu and
good
then
line.
went out and played football.
That's a good line.
That's a good line, and that's the summation there for Noah Sewell.
That's Jeff Sintel and Don Williams in our Facebook comment section on the subject of Sewell, seeing all the love that exists for him out there, says, well, what about Nakobe Dean? Have we already forgotten about Nakobe Dean? Don, I will say that I don't think that the value of Sewell to the Georgia class is any kind of replacement for Dean or Ryan Davis or Tresman Marshall or any other linebackers that Georgia signed recently. I think Jeff just touched on it. Because of the size that Sewell brings to the table, he's legitimately big enough to be a defensive lineman if he wanted to be that. But because of the speed that he also possesses, he's that unique specimen. And as for as highly rated as Nakobe Dean was a year ago, and we'll let the future determine which of these two guys ends up being the better football player. The one thing about it is Georgia has never, ever quite signed a player like what Noah Sewell would be if Sewell indeed does come to UGA.
Simply put, folks, there's no one like Noah Sewell in college football in my mind, especially no one in the SEC. If you want to get a really good gauge about Noah Sewell and his worth, we're in the forum right now on that Sintel's Intel Hurry Up thread. We've got a couple of longtime veteran coaches breaking down his latest performance when he took the field at about 85-90% coming off a broken bone in his foot. We go A to Z on what we like, what can get better about Noah Sewell. But here's the point, folks. Make no bones about it. Georgia was not going to take an inside linebacker in this class until they got a really good dollop of scouting advice and some scouting evaluation on Noah Sewell. If for some reason Georgia doesn't wind up signing Noah Sewell, Georgia will take 0 inside linebackers in this class. Noah Sewell is just so special and so elite that they have to try and do their best to get him in the class.
Well, Devin Glenn says that Sewell's proved himself against elite competition. Maybe not in the high school ranks of Utah where he lives, but I'll mention before, being in Frisco, Texas for the opening, where I think that's where the light really came on for a lot of people, that this was not just a unique body type and skill set, but a guy who was in kind of a rarefied air in terms of performance as well.
Well, I noticed Noah Sewell actually last year because they played a national marquee game against Bishop Gorman, and that was the marquee school where Tate Martell went from. I think they've got at least 3 or 4 national championships in this decade, and DTR, who's now the quarterback at UCLA, he was a freshman he was the senior quarterback. I just wanted to watch him and see what he could do. And then I was like, man, there's this number 2 again. He's making play after play. And he's actually put it all together on the field as well as the camp showcases and the ballerinas as well.
It is name number 3 here, top targets for the class of 2020. After Ringo and Sewell, you get to Darnell Washington. Another one of these guys, but this time the 5-star tight end out of Nevada. He seemed to certainly enjoy himself on his UGA visit for the Notre Dame game. Jeff, anything to add to what we already know, which is that he was on hand and certainly seemed to have a very good time?
Yeah, fantastic official visit for Darnell. He brought his family with him. Darnell was there. He brought one of his core mentors were there. His mother, it looked like that he was there with him as well. And it was a great official for Georgia. It'll be interesting to see if Darnell Washington continues his course about taking all of his official visits. He's thinking about Miami, he's thinking about Tennessee, he's thinking about Penn State, he's thinking about Alabama. Very interested to see if he'll continue to take his officials. I would bet he will, because he still is trending towards making his decision at an All-American game.
Name number 4 here, top targets for the class of 2020. You get to Jordan Birch out of Columbia, South Carolina. Kirby Smart, I guess, on hand, along with Will Muschamp to see him during the bye week last weekend. What else can you tell us about Birch?
Yeah, interesting about Birch. He made a bunch of plays as a receiver and a Wildcat quarterback in that game. You don't see a lot of him terrorizing guys as an interior line defender, but Birch is the 5-star, I believe he's still the number 2 overall prospect right now in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Unique size, unique speed, very versatile game as you see everything that he's doing on offense. He's even lined up as a defensive back sometimes for the Hammond School there as well. But that's a recruitment that is a big wait-and-see recruitment, Jordan Birch right there.
Why wait and see? Wait and see on whose part? Georgia's part or Birch's part?
Wait and see definitely not on Georgia's part. Waiting to see how many visits he takes, where he shows up. Does he take officials? Does he wait to do it at an All-American game? Does he go all the way? That's something to really watch about all that. But Georgia folks, the Georgia people have to consider Kirby Smart with that off weekend, an off date, had the choice to go visit anywhere.
Yeah.
And he made the choice to go visit Columbia, South Carolina, and to check out Mr. Birch.
Is Clemson still a bigger threat than the in-town program, South Carolina, when it comes to Birch?
I think it's going to be a puncher's duel between Clemson and Georgia for the services of one Jordan Birch.
All right, let's see the next name on the list. Top targets for the class of 2020. Let's talk about Theo Johnson, another tight end. We've seen the fire and ice tweets from Todd Hartley. We have seen certainly his stated desire to bring these two elite tight ends in. The more that Rick Gilbert trends away from Georgia, and it seems like every single day there's more circumstantial evidence that that's basically over and done with. The dual recruitment of Washington Johnson is critical here.
Yeah, so Theo, everybody saw him on his Instagram story maybe this week where he was deadlifting 495 4 times with even the bands on there, still getting in some work. He's going to take his
The reason why
visit.
they call that deadlifting is because if I tried that, I would be dead. That's the reason why I call it that.
You like the bands and the resistance training, but Theo, again, 6'6", some 245 pounds. That's a nice little lift, especially for some late night work. Reminder, folks, he is going to take his visits, some rapid fire visits. He's going to go to Iowa. He's going to go to Penn State. He's going to go to Michigan. This month of October will be crucial for Theo Johnson in making his decision. To me, it doesn't sound like he's the type of guy that's going to stretch things out all the way to January. He's at the Under Armour All-American game. Seems to me like the wheelhouse for him to make a decision might come November, December.
Robert Barnes in our Facebook comment section says, just that top 5 alone, get a pretty good list of recruits right there, just with the top 5 names on the list. And you know what, Robert, we're going to add to this and keep it going here because coming up after Johnson on the list for the top targets, let's get to number 6, Zykevius Walker, in-state, Sly County. A little higher than we've seen Walker on this list. If I'm not mistaken, this is the highest ranking for a Walker on our top targets thus far, is it not?
I think he's been 6 or 7 before. Zykevius Walker will actually be in Florida this weekend for the Auburn-Florida game on his official visit. Just had homecoming last weekend. And interesting little side note about Zykevius, and everybody's going to be like, what? For you long-range recruitniks out there. His younger brother is already about 6'1", 210 pounds. He's an 8th grader. And he's making a ton of plays down in tiny Ellaville already. For Zykevius, he's about 6'5.5", 272 pounds. The thinking there is Georgia, with a defensive line spot. I don't think they take 6 or 7 defensive linemen this year. So you look at Georgia's potentials and the kind of birds in the hand. Do you see Georgia getting a Gervon Dexter? Do you see them getting a Jordan Birch? Do you see them getting a Zykevius Walker? I don't see Georgia getting all those 3 gentlemen unless there's further attrition from the current commitment group.
All right, so that's worth paying attention to. Let me move on. Next name, top of, now how about this? Moving in and moving up. Not just moving up, but moving on to the list. 4-star cornerback out of Kansas City, Dante Manning. I like Kansas City barbecue. Tell me about Manning, though, and what's caused him to essentially leap into the conversation here for Georgia.
Yeah, I love Manning in his game. He was a Oklahoma decommit. And when Oklahoma went through some changes in structures with some of their defensive staff, some of Oklahoma's previous commitments decommitted right around June, July or so. That's what Dante Manning did. He's out of Kansas City. Love his film. He shows off length. He shows off speed. He shows off physicality. It looks like he could play corner. Brandon, he's returning kicks for his high school team. He's about a 10-7 in the 100. And for folks of you that like to hear about those rankings, lean in really close. 24/7 Sports has him as the number 3 overall corner, the number 30 overall player. 24/7 Sports Composite has him as the number 7 overall corner, the number 99 overall player. Very interesting, and I've started to get to know Mr. Manning over the last week or so. Manning plans to take his official visit to Georgia in December, Brandon. And he calls the program, when he refers to the Georgia program, he refers to it as Dog Family. That's something that hadn't even appeared on the DogNation.com website yet. You guys are hearing that first. Dante Manning, he is a chart buster at number 7 on the top targets list.
So I'm always going to be trying to figure out how this moves other boards around the chess, pieces around the chessboard. Does this kind of end Georgia's pursuit of Elias Ricks then? That was always going to be a tough one. Does this further cement the fact that was always going to be tough?
Here's what makes him number 7 ahead of other names. He's very good. He's highly rated. He's a track guy as well. You see that speed on film. And he's already thinking about taking an official visit to Georgia as well. He describes and shares an affinity and a connection to the staff already. Going to watch that name Dante Manning for a while. He's on Twitter. I think his handle is Crazy Eights.
Nice.
Does a lot of good stuff for his community. You see that across his social feed. And those rankings, he's about 6 feet, about 185 pounds. Looks like Georgia, Texas A&M, Oregon. Those are the schools that are going to end up really in a battle there for Dante Manning.
That's really interesting to think about. Really be fun to watch where this one goes. And I'm a big believer that the smart guys take their official visits in December. I know it seems like a cool time to do it, especially if you get a chance to come to the Notre Dame game. The
smart guys or the Kirby smart guys?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's the word I'm looking for? The refined tastes understand that you get a nice red carpet experience when you take your OVs in December. That's the time to take the official visit.
You mean the discriminating 4 and 5?
Discriminating. That's the word I was looking for, yeah. That's the word I was looking for. December is the time you want to take that official visit, so good job by Manning if he indeed does that, and good job by you by bringing in a pretty interesting piece of information into our show here today. Let's keep things going. After the newcomer Manning, how about the Florida commit Dexter? Is this still a deal of if Florida falters, Dexter's on the loose, or is his commitment not connected as maybe some of us might think to the Gators' performance in the field? Worth pointing out, while I'm a big Florida doubter, they continue to be undefeated and get a chance to have a big game there in their stadium on Saturday.
Here's exactly what I think. If Florida does not come to play against Auburn on Saturday, 24-20, big loss at home in front of all those recruits, I'm going to be tempted to move Gervon Dexter up the board. Tempted. It might take 1 or 2 losses like that to really cause him to move up the board. But the only way Georgia will get Gervon Dexter, let me just be frank, is if Florida has a lackluster season, and what I would define that as a 3 or 4 or 5 loss season.
All right. If Florida loses bad on Saturday, if they lose comfortably, which I think is a strong possibility, and then 2 days after that, you can produce a story at dognation.com with Gervon Dexter saying, hey, Georgia, holla at me because I'm not so sure about the situation in Florida anymore. I will frame that and put it right behind me. I will print that out on my brand new printer that I have, and I will get that story framed and I'll hang it right here. There is nothing I'd love more than to see Florida's, arguably top commit.
It is.
Upset with the status of the Gators after losing to Auburn and saying, yeah, maybe there is something going on in Georgia here.
I don't think it'll just be that. I think it'll take, and by the way, what do you think about that game? Is that a 2-touchdown win?
I like Auburn. I think as much as Florida's had trouble running the football, weaknesses on the offensive line, I think Auburn's defensive line is not what you want to see there in that regard. Now, I wish the whole world hadn't been patting Auburn on the back for the last 7 days, to be completely honest with you, but I like Auburn.
So
I'm taking them officially as a part of our Go with the Flow presented by R.S. Andrews later this week, Dog Nation video channel.
Gave away a tasty nugget there.
That's fine.
Gave away some
No,
branded.
you've already given away some free content. I'll give some free content away.
So here's what I'll.
I don't move the line between now and
I would think that start watching for the Florida back-to-back, because I believe they get LSU the following week, right after, or maybe a week after Auburn.
Just tell me this: are they hosting more recruits this time? I could have thrown a birthday party and gotten more recruits to come than what Florida have the Tennessee game.
Yeah, they're having some folks show up for this one. They're going to have a good crowd
Good
for this one.
Maybe they'll get a chance to see a real show. By the way, the line is actually moving in the direction of Florida. Y'all don't care about this. I'll make this quick, but you can find a lot of 2.5s out there right now. So the line is moving in the direction of Florida here a little bit.
And so far, no Dan Mullen appearances on Feinbaum to drum up energy and buzz for this week.
All right, let's see our next name. Dexter, the Florida commit, gets us talking. So he's still on the list, but he's going down. It's Zachary Evans. A lot of chatter about him maybe this week that I don't even know what to say about it. But just what's going on here? Zachary Evans. We've talked about him 9 million times.
Zachary Evans moving down the list. I think I move him down the list for a reason, and I think that pretty much well covers it. I continue.
Well, no, you got to give us more than that.
I continue to think that Georgia and Zachary Evans, at one time, was a very clear reality. Is very muddy now, to the point where, listen, folks, the running back position is going to be what it is going to be for Georgia. They're exploring all options right now in terms of who's going to be the best running back fit for the class of 2020.
So I want to talk to you more about those other running backs in a second. I have a feeling some of those names will pop up here in a minute. But the Evans thing kind of is what it is at this point in time, and we'll see. Name number 10, top targets for the class of 2020. Wow, still on the list. You want to talk about holding out all hope here. A candle in the window for Rick Gilbert. Still barely in the top 10 for Gilbert. I'm actually surprised he's still on the list at all, to be honest
Some
with
might look at that list and surmise and think, well, I think Jeff's going to just put life support on number 9 and 10 on the top targets list are going to be the ones with just.
I mean, at this point in time, I'm okay if we don't ever talk about Gilbert again. I mean, I'm not mad at him. He can go wherever he wants to go. I'm not mad at him at all. But at this point in time, it sort of is what it is.
The faintest of heartbeats. You used candle in the window since you're such a romantic guy. I think that's the proper rungs with respect to their ability, their previous affection for Georgia, and then maybe where current things stand. Those 9 and 10 rungs they're kind of top bunk on that list for a reason.
I mean, Gilbert probably just wants to go somewhere where we're going to throw the ball all over the yard, right? Let's see the guys that just missed out on consideration. Not the top 10, but the guys that almost made the list. We'll take a look at some of those names here today as a part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. My guess is we'll see some running backs here, and I want to talk about these guys. Yeah, there's Bigsby, the running back, showing up. Don Chaney, the Miami committee, shows up. Ashad Johnson, the high school teammate of Cedric Van Pran, he's on here. Marshawn Lloyd still on here. So let me just do running backs here for a moment. So the last couple times I've interviewed you, Dog Nation Daily on Tuesday, Before the Hedges last week, you keep bringing up Chaney as a pretty strong possibility for Georgia, or maybe someone that Georgia fans should not forget about. But you interviewed Chaney a couple months ago. Boy, he didn't seem to leave out a whole lot of. I mean, sometimes you say I read into the comment the quotes too much. But if you go back and look at the last Chaney story you wrote at DogNation.com, he wasn't talking that much about Georgia. I think this was from the summer, I think.
Yeah, it was in July.
Okay, it was in July. He was not talking much about Georgia then. I mean, is it more realistic with Chaney now?
Well, there's a time when he was ready to commit. It felt like he was going to commit to Georgia. That time passed. He is a Miami Hurricane through and through, still repping the 305. Just got to see what happens there with that Miami program. To me, and this is what you were looking for a minute ago, Brandon. Looking at all those running backs, if you go Chaney, you go Johnson, Clayton, you go Lloyd, you go Bigsby, you go Evans, or other, or none of the above. I think the most likely scenario for me right now might be either undecided or none of the above. But if I had to pick a guy that I feel, as of today, would be the ideal choice for Georgia at the running back spot to pair with Kendall Milton, I think that would be Don Chaney Jr. That would be this preference if Georgia could go back and get anybody that they wanted to. Of course, that's going to be a very hard pull there with Don Chaney Jr. Perhaps the easiest one would be Ashad Clayton Johnson. The one that's kind of jury's out is definitely, you would say, Marshawn Lloyd. You would say Zachary Evans.
Yeah, I was telling everybody, Connor Raleigh, about this the other day, that when it comes to Lloyd, it's almost like you never hear any connection to him to Georgia whatsoever. Like, we talk about him because I'm always asking about running backs, but in terms of like Lloyd talking about Georgia, you almost never see any example of that at all. I guess other than that one like Kendall Milton video.
Here's what will happen with Lloyd. If Lloyd takes a visit to Georgia for the Texas A&M game, that will be interesting. And I think that's what it's going to take. Another visit, perhaps as an undecided or a committed recruit, before things would really have to heat up there between Georgia and Marshawn Lloyd. And finishing out that group, I just think that there's a history there with Georgia and Tank Bigsby. There's some good history. There's some not so good history that I think all that stuff needs to be navigated properly.
You talking about Tank Bigsby now?
Yeah, Tank Bigsby. I just think, let's face it, guys. There was a time when Tank Bigsby looked like he wasn't going to go to Georgia, and then he was going to go to Georgia. But then Zachary Evans and the mutual affection on both parties kind of made that a little choppy water right now. And I think everybody's past that. But, man, I don't know if the damage can be undone, because you got to give Auburn credit. They're winning. They're surging as a program right now. And it looks like Tank Bigsby sees a quarterback that's going to keep a lot of guys out of the box, or at least some guys out of the box, for the foreseeable future on the plane.
People don't like him when I'm anything other than positive, but honesty compels me to admit, there are going to be a lot of people who say that Georgia mishandled the Tank Bigsby recruitment. Fair or unfair, a lot of people are going to say that Georgia mishandled that recruitment.
But, here's my pushback on this, Brandon. We talked about this. This was big boy stakes. And the bird in the hand, the easier thing to do, I don't think if you asked any evaluator of talent to say this guy or this guy, you have a chance with both. You have a strong chance with both. I think Georgia's reached the point, especially with what it has coming back the running back spot, where they're going to see what the long game looked like. They wanted to see what the long game looked like with Zachary Evans because that was a prize worth the degree of difficulty there compared to Tank Bigsby.
I want to push back on this just one time, and then after that I'm going to let it go. The problem with that is that recruiting is always a future tense conversation because it's really not of very much value to say, well, at the time Georgia thought they had him. The problem is you can't sign him then. You got to wait till December at least to be able to sign him. And I've always felt like that you've got to be able to project a little bit about how this has a opportunity to change. It certainly seems like, all these dates that got thrown around of, he's going to commit on this date and he's going to shut it down and all this kind of stuff that kind of put out there, and strong belief among many people. Certainly you don't have to look very far to see the online chatter on this. Where it were to happen then, he was going to commit to Georgia. But there was still going to be, months and months and months before he could sign. And I always felt like the later it got, the more some of the schools that you hear coming up now, Texas A&M and LSU, opportunity for schools like that to get involved in his recruitment and pry him away from Georgia. That's my problem. It's not that Georgia didn't think they had him at one point in time. Obviously they did, otherwise they probably would have taken Bigsby's commitment. It's just that they didn't maybe project forward as well as they could have.
Maybe not the same thing. I'm going to throw this out there for you, Brandon, and you tell me, chew on it if it feels like the same thing. For your quality program, the flagship Dog Nation Daily, if you had a chance to book one of the 5 or 6 best running backs in Georgia football history for tomorrow, or you had a chance for that same time slot to book Herschel Walker, who are you holding out for?
Well, if Herschel Walker left me hanging a year ago, I guess at this point in time I might take somebody that I knew I could get. Because it'd be the second year in a row that Georgia thought it had somebody and didn't. Honestly, I'm not even that mad about it because, I do think Evans is probably a pretty spectacular prospect overall. But it is not one of these things where you say you don't calculate the risk at all. You have to calculate the risk into this. I do think Georgia needs 2 running backs. You have to calculate the risk in assuming that, y'all, Texas A&M has no running game whatsoever. You talk about the easiest recruiting pitch in the world, Jimbo Fisher saying to Zachary Evans, please come here because we're not physical. We can't run it at all. They can promise him 30 carries because who else are they going to give him to?
So think about this. What if you were doing TexAgs Daily, Brandon, and you were chronicling, and maybe it was before the 12th man or before Kyle Field, a sister program, back on that world-famous entity known as SEC Country. Can you imagine the twists and turns that Zachary Evans' recruitment has had for that fan base? Let's rewind it really fast. Names the top 5. Neither Texas school is in there. Looks like he's going to Georgia. Looks like he's going to Alabama. Looks like he's going back to Georgia. Now Georgia seems muddy water. Now it's either Texas A&M or LSU is the hot new thing on the block, is the hot new kid in class for Zachary Evans and his ultimate decision. There's going to be some gray hairs and some lost sleep about Zachary Evans right now, especially in the state of Texas and about this recruitment. I want to say one thing. Tank Bigsby, Auburn's a school for him because they showed unwavering and undying affinity. They showed him all the love. They said, you're our guy. I'm going to tell you this, Brandon. If Zachary Evans and Don Chaney and Kendall Milton were ever on the board and was ever reciprocating love to Auburn, that love for Tank Bigsby, I bet, this is my hypothesis, wouldn't be as strong as it has been all along. And that's what high-stakes college football recruiting, big boy recruiting is all about.
Certainly fair enough, but you also got to calculate the risk and some of this kind of stuff there as well. It'll be interesting to follow, kind of see where it goes from here and how Georgia responds to whatever the new facts on the ground are, depending on what they are. Let me see the list one more time of the guys that almost missed the top 10 because all we talked about were running backs there. Jaquarius Conley, we've talked about him before, recently offered by UGA. Jaden DeLaura, the quarterback for the class of 2020, we've talked about him.
Got to drop one info nugget on them. Jaden DeLaura just picked up his first Pac-12 offer. Washington State wants him to be the next Minshew at their school. He just picked up a Pac-12 offer from Washington State. Now that goes along with Hawaii and San Diego State. The world's starting to notice Jaden DeLaura. He is prepping right now at the same high school which produced Timmy Chang and
Is that
also
right?
Tua Tagovailoa. He's at the factory of quarterbacks.
I knew it was Tua's school. I didn't know that. And I'm a longtime college football fan. I remember Timmy Chang playing quarterback at Hawaii there for the Rainbow Warriors as well at one point in time.
Got himself in Heisman consideration as well.
A little bit. I think he also didn't he stop playing quarterback there and play a different position before his career was done. I think.
I think he was a long-time QB.
But anyway, interesting stuff. It's our top targets here as part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. That's Jeff Sintel, our Dog Nation recruiting insider. My name's Brandon Adams. And by the way, speaking of our friends at Kroger, Kroger's got everything you need for all your tailgating needs. You can get buy one or get one of equal or lesser value for free on pork back ribs. You can also get Doritos for $1.99 per bag when you buy two. So great savings at Kroger. Get in there and save on that as you get ready for tailgating on Friday or Saturday, or if you like the brand of football played on Sundays, you can do some of that as well, all there at your local Kroger, by all means.
Got a Let's Be Human Beings quick break in our program, Brandon. Who watching saw us last year for Before the Hedges when we went costumed for Before the Hedges?
We did do that, yeah.
Remember Brandon was B.A. Man?
I was.
I reprised an outfit resembling the great Georgia legend, the late great Georgia legend, Rasul. Thinking about doing that again in October. Brandon, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, we can probably do that.
Also, costumes, please drop them in if you have any suggestions. One more thing, Brennan. Have you put up any Halloween decorations outside your house?
Not yet. We'll do some of those eventually. My kids love that kind of stuff, but we'll do some of that kind of stuff eventually.
Our first ones went up yesterday. We put our big purple ghoul up in front of the house. He looked about Noah Sewell sized. He was about 7, 8 feet. Looked like he could run through a house or a couple of brick walls. We put him up yesterday, and the kids were mighty excited.
I was pretty sure Timmy Chang finished his career at Hawaii not playing quarterback, but either way, he's also a coach now. He's coaching at University of Nevada. Kind of cool stuff there. I guess he's a position coach there at Nevada, so kind of cool stuff there from Timmy Chang, former Hawaii quarterback. You don't care about that. You care about recruiting talk, so let's keep that going as part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Jeff will give you his weekly six-pack coming up. We'll do some trivia. Before that, let's check in on some of the online chatter, some of the stuff that's been out there on the web here over the last couple of days, and we'll kind of find out what people are saying, what UGA recruiting targets themselves are saying. Let's do that here as part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Just go ahead and throw these up, and we'll kind of chat with them and talk about them. The first one up here, let's take a look at it right now. Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. So this is kind of interesting thing from the Fox College Football account. Now, one of these guys is also a former Georgia recruiting target himself. The Wisconsin's out here doing more with less. So you see the Badgers having some success with just 9 former 4- and 5-star recruits, while the rest of the top 10 obviously has a plethora. I'm going to tell you this is one they're disqualified from the national championship conversation, but for now, while they're playing Michigan and whoever else, I guess it's good enough to beat them, but it's not going to win you a national championship.
Yeah, look at that list again, and this is just the 24/7 sports rating, not the composite rating. But you look at the top 10 there. Look, Georgia, if you want to quickly scan them, Georgia has the most 5 stars. Schools like Ohio State, Alabama, clearly, they still have more 4 stars than the Bulldogs. But
yeah, people may not realize this, but Ohio State's so-called blue chip ratio a little higher than Georgia's.
Yeah, they've got a lot of. I mean, they've really
by a couple percentage points.
Couple percentage points. Look at LSU. I think that number's a little low compared to a lot of the contemporaries. Look what Ohio State. Look what Oklahoma had there as only with 50. You mentioned Wisconsin. They've got the incredible running back. They've got Rashad Wildgoose.
Yeah, Wildgoose is doing well for them.
Look at Notre Dame, though. Notre Dame was in there a little bit more than folks might think. And, the second lowest team on there in terms of 4- and 5-star blue chip ratios, that would also be the team out in Gainesville, Brandon.
Yeah, and really a lot of those 4 stars have been added by Florida just this last year. I mean, for a while, they were not recruiting at all. All right, next online chatter here as part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Next one on the list. So we knew this would probably come at some point in time. Caleb Williams gets his offer from Clemson. This program has recruited quarterbacks at unprecedented tilt. And I guess you add Williams here potentially as the next name. But not next name to commit there, but the next name they've targeted.
Well, unprecedented, I don't know about unprecedented because remember that school in Athens, Georgia had 3 consecutive 5 stars. What Clemson is trying to do.
I don't think that Georgia was bragging about that these days.
Well, they recruited them nonetheless, even though Eason and Fields were never at Georgia at the same time. But what Clemson's trying to do is they're thinking with Trevor, they took him in the 2018 class. He walked on water, won him a national title, or at least part of it. They didn't take any quarterbacks in 2019. They've got DJ Ungale in the 2020 class, and then Caleb Williams are trying to add him together in the 2021 class. Folks got to remember, Clemson was there watching Caleb Williams last week, along with Georgia, along with Oregon, I believe. They've now offered him. That is the only offer for them in the 2021 class at quarterback. Wow. And they're trying to do what they do at quarterback. And that'd be very interesting. We got into some detail on this one on the forum, Brandon, a little bit. I'm going to just say it. This is my clear opinion. I don't think DJ Ungale is the type of player that can keep Caleb Williams on the bench for multiple seasons. The thing you got to remember there with separation, though, is Caleb can't join his program until June of 2021 because he can't be a mid-year at his league, in his high school league, in the Catholic school league in D.C. So there's going to be some interesting separation there between like a 2020 signee, especially a 2020 early enroll signee, and then when Caleb Williams can get there. But to me, I called it on Twitter, I called it an arm race because that's what's going to happen. The only thing left now is the only thing left there for that to get any more interesting or more combustible is for Stanford to go ahead and throw in their offer for Caleb Williams and make things extremely interesting. One thing I'm watching for and looking for is I don't think Caleb Williams has made his final game day visit to Georgia this season.
That's certainly worth paying attention to. Next piece of online chatter here is a part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. You see Williams get the Clemson offer. You see some interesting stuff. And now, tell us about this. What's going on here?
So this is Ryan Linthicum, number one center.
What's a mouthful?
Number one center for 2021, Brandon. Guess which high school he hails out of?
Tell me.
Damascus High in Damascus, Maryland.
There you go.
What does that mean for people that really know their stuff here? That's Brian Brazee's high school teammate. So Clemson's already getting some aftershocks right now with the Brian Brazee commitment and steadfast pledge to the Tigers. They're getting his teammate, which is the number one center in the country for 2021 as well. One little nugget. Caleb Williams is working that 2021 class with a lot of guys. Wants to play with a lot of his guys. Evan Pryor is one of those guys. Bo Collins out in California is one of those guys. That was a guy that he was thinking, also from the Maryland, D.C. area, that he wouldn't have minded to be his center in college football.
Boy, amazing how deep that Beltway area is right now. A lot of fertile soil for recruiting at the moment. Next piece of online chatter, let's get a chance to take a look at this. This is a part of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. So a pretty good piece in our Dog Nation forum this week that I thought did a pretty good job of kind of laying out what the recruiting work is like, especially this time of year as you're heading towards those big moments to come later in December and February.
Yeah, I'm gonna read this out because Akram 21 is one of our graduate posters on the forum. Got over 1,900 posts in there, and we're doing a little bit more with our forum this week. I'm trying to put about 3 or 4 info bits every day, at least 4 or 5 days a week in the forum, especially in my intel thread. But I like the turn of the phrasing here. He said, recruiting is like chopping wood. First, you got to find the tree you want. Then you have to swing until until the bleep falls. We have a family program here.
Sure we do.
Next, you have to saw it up into lengths that you're able to split one swing at a time. After all that time, labor, chopping, and stacking, then you can enjoy the fire. Some people just want to roast marshmallows, though.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, it certainly takes a lot of work. That's why I always say it comes back down to relationships. Kirby Smart and his staff really good at establishing those relationships, and ultimately, more so than cool uniforms or flashy social media edits, it's those long-term relationships I think that matter more than anything else.
I think the only thing that would have made Mr. Akram 21's thought perfect was he would have said something about a certain school stacking up recruits like cordwood. I think that would be the
well, also, if you're Georgia, recruiting is like chopping wood. If you're Florida, recruiting is like banging your head against the wood. Just
woodpecker recruiting?
Something along those lines. How about some more online chatter? Let's check it out here. We'll get some trivia coming up, but a little bit more online chatter here. We're all good on online chatter? All right. So it's Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. We'll have some more time for your comments here before we're done. Let's give the floor to Jeff Sintel here for now, though, as we get some trivia questions here this week. We're usually themed out. Didn't do this last week, so it's exciting to be doing this again. Are we doing a Tennessee theme here?
Was there wasn't any there wasn't a 6-pack for you last week, Brandon, to go through and consume?
We didn't do 6-pack. Yeah.
Okay, so this week, Brandon, it's hybrid.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if Tennessee, and maybe this would be overlooking the opponent. I didn't I didn't give them all 6.
Oh, wow. They didn't just get all 6.
They
Wow.
didn't get all 6. They didn't get all 6.
It's a little disappointing.
I've got some good ones at the front, though, Brandon.
All right.
Let's go ahead with our first one, Brandon. A little hybrid.
All right.
The 112-yard game from Dominic Blaylock got the wheels turning. When was the last season in which a Georgia receiver had more than 150 receiving yards in a game?
All right.
And I've kind of helped you out here. 2014, Malcolm Mitchell.
Once again, I don't know why we don't put these in chronological order, but
They are in chronological order. They're 2014, 2020.
oh, they're going in descending order. Yeah, okay, I see.
Come on. We try to cater to the superstar, and he's still roasting marshmallows sometime with the six-pack trivia.
Okay.
Malcolm Mitchell, 2014, Tavares King, 2012, Muhammad Massaquoi, 2008, or Fred Gibson in 2001.
By the way, nice touch for Tavares King the Notre Dame game. He and Noshawn Marino had traded jerseys with each other. It was kind of a funny thing to see. Noshawn was wearing the King jersey. King was wearing the Noshawn jersey. I'm tempted to want to say Malcolm Mitchell because Mitchell had big numbers. Did Fred Gibson have this many receiving yards against Tennessee in 2001?
Hopefully Georgia doesn't have to go back to 2001 to find.
04 for Fred Gibson would have made sense there as well. Let me go Mitchell 2014 on this. Let me go Mitchell 2014. He had a lot of big numbers for Georgia. A lot of big numbers. I'll go.
What is Facebook
Lynn
Nation?
Johnson Shipman says C. Philip Jordan Wells says A. Jarvis Hanna says D. Let's see what YouTube is saying here.
Facebook has
Dallas
C.
Schwartz says C. So, so kind of a smattering of answers.
Let's look at them one more time, and I'll drop the answer there. The correct answer, though, isn't as far back as you might think. Tavares King,
Okay.
2012. That was actually after the 2011 season because that was in the Outback Bowl that kicked off 2012.
So this is the end of the 2012 season. I mean, end of the 2011 season.
Correct, but it was
Okay.
technically in 2012.
Good.
Tavares King had a monster game that day. I know you love to hear about receiving and yards and big plays like that, so that was one of those.
Very interesting. Tavares King, the pride of Mount Airy, Georgia.
Does Georgia get a
Habersham
receiver?
Central.
Does Georgia get a receiver over 150 yards this year? What do you think?
Hopefully so. We shall see, though.
Sometimes Brandon says a lot when he laughs. Moving on to number 2. The second one for us is another one. Who holds the Georgia all-time record for most receiving yards in a
That's
game?
a good question.
A, Lamar Davis, and really strong Georgia Bulldog trivia enthusiasts will know who Lamar Davis is. B, Pat Hodgson. Everybody will associate that with the drugstore that's always been in Athens. Pat Hodgson, way back in...
Wait, is that him?
Family. I think the family's associated with that drugstore.
Oh, that's fascinating.
C, Terrence Edwards, 1999. D, Fred Gibson, 2001. Or E, one Tavares King in 2012. The all-time record for most receiving yards in a game.
So Lamar Davis would have been Johnny Roush. Would that have been the quarterback on the 42 team? Is that right? Maybe so?
Yeah, 42 and 46. Roush was on both of those.
Hodgson's such a outlier that it almost seems like that could be a possibility. That would have been pre-Dooley. Edwards is seemingly the record holder for everything else. Keep coming back to Gibson in 2001. Sean Thomas says Terrence. I'm trying to think what game it would have been in 99. These were not necessarily prolific offenses that year.
Lots of Terrence Edwards is coming in on
Yeah,
YouTube.
if it was later, I would say Terrence. 99 seems, I don't know. I guess I'm going to say Terrence, but boy, I don't have a lot of confidence in that answer.
First of all,
I'll say Terrence.
Isn't it interesting that Georgia has 2 names on this list that predate Dooley in terms of,
Yeah.
folks, anything over 150 yards receiving back in 1942 or 1963 feels like 450 yards receiving.
Well, I will
today.
take this to my grave, that the most underrated performer in UGA history is Johnny Roush. When he left Georgia, and this record's been broken a gazillion times since then, when he left Georgia, he was the NCAA leader in passing for a career.
Interesting.
And that's been destroyed like a gazillion times since then.
I
of
think
course.
Johnny Roush.
He also coached the Raiders to the Super Bowl.
I think Roush was 46, 47.
So maybe he
had
wasn't
the war
42,
stoppage.
yeah.
I think maybe Zeke Bertowski was 1942. I think Zeke was 1942. But looking at that list, let's pull up the names again and let's share it with you, Brandon. It should ring some familiar bells. We got a lot of Terrence Edwards, a big fan of the program. Got some Gibsons in there. The correct answer, though, Brandon. What did you answer, by the way?
Tavares King again, wow.
Did you drop an answer on that?
Oh, I
one?
said Terrence.
You said Terrence.
Yeah.
So E, Tavares King. King went off for 205 yards in the 2012 Outback Bowl. He stands as one of only 2 Georgia receivers with a 200-yard game. Fred Gibson was the other.
Was that Michigan State? Who did Georgia play in that game?
Yes, Michigan
They
State.
lost to Michigan State. You're talking about that awful stretch where it's like one boring Big Ten team after another. It's like Nebraska, like 9 years in a row.
Or Wisconsin, and then you had Michigan State.
Penn State without a coach.
There was Purdue there one year.
Like playing Penn State would have been fun, but Penn State without a coach, not quite so much. It seems like it was Purdue more than once. It's probably only once, but it seems like that's just an awful stretch. Just boring games, one right after the other.
A lot of the Orlando Bowls, too. Moving on, we're on our third one now. And Brandon, I like
This answer is also Tavares King 2012.
No. I like this one, though. It makes you think a little bit. I had this one in my back pocket for a little bit. Number 3, freshman outside linebacker Nolan Smith committed to Georgia way back on January the 29th of 2017.
Oh, Lord.
How many Bulldogs who played against Arkansas State earlier this year chose Georgia after Smith did?
See, I don't like these kinds of questions. Like, this is, like, I can't do anything other than guess on this. I mean, how would I know this?
Well, you got to sit there and think that he's committed for almost 2 full cycles.
Yeah.
So how many guys that are on the team right now committed to Georgia before Nolan Smith did?
I'm going to say 52B.
52B.
I'll say 52B. 37 seems a little low. I'll say 52B.
Nick comes in on YouTube with B. Lloyd Dog comes in with C.
Well, let me just clarify one thing. Robert Barnes asked about the game against Michigan State being Dooley's last game. Yes, but that was the 88 Gator Bowl. Not a boring game. Andre Rison for a Michigan State, Tony Mandarich,
Rodney Hampton.
Hampton Worley. That was not a boring game.
One of my top 5 all-time most interesting bowl games would have to be that Michigan State game, man. Lots of players on that game.
I enjoyed that. I did.
Wayne Johnson was your quarterback. Turning your attention back to that question, though, a lot of C's. Dapper Dan weighs in. You know, folks, I just wanted to give a breath of the thought that Nolan Smith has been committed to Georgia for a good percentage of the roster. Obviously, the entire 2019 class. Look at that. Look at there right there. The correct answer, Brandon, you guessed 52.
There you go.
Nailed it. Think about that second.
Very good.
There were 86 Bulldogs who saw the field against Arkansas State.
Yeah.
The freshman committed to the G before 60% of the other players on the team did, including 9 of the 24 starters.
I mean, it's Nolan Smith. Yeah, Yeah, that's really something.
24 starters, and we added the punter and the kicker there as well. So
yeah, that's really something.
But 52, that's a neat little fact. At least it was in my book.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now we're going to Tennessee. Tennessee time.
All right, here we go. The Tennessee portion.
Tennessee portion. Brandon, true or false? Cade Mays got his first college offer from the Vols a long, long time ago. The UT legacy was not yet in high school.
That seems like it could be true. It seems like it could be true. Dad played there. I'm sure whatever year this was, they needed some good PR because they have for most of the last decade. Offering him as an 8th grader, 7th grader, something like that makes sense. I'll say true.
Devon Glenn says true. Eric Smith says true.
A lot of falses on YouTube, though. Devin Glenn and Nick say false. I think it's true, though.
Brandon, ring the bell for him, sir.
There you go.
Brandon, you're 2 for 4 now. You got off the mat, man. 0 for 2,
I did.
and now you're 2 for 4.
I did. So Mark Rick said 2 more years at Georgia when Mays first got his offer. That's pretty interesting.
That's a long time ago, man.
Yeah.
5 years, 3 months, and 19 days ago. Connor, what were you doing 5 years, 3 months, and 19 days ago?
Junior in college. Boy, heady days. Heady days for sure.
Connor was living it up. He just got a big smile across his face as he went down that memory lane. Number 5. Brandon's on a hot streak. He's on a hot table right here. Number 5. This one might be the cooler. What does the blue chip ratio, 4- and 5-star recruits, of signees since 2016 look like this week with Tennessee?
It's going to be lower for Tennessee. I believe it's going to be 76-35. I don't think they've got 49 blue chippers. I don't think so. Georgia could certainly have 79. I believe it's 76-35 though.
Brandon's final answer. Let's get the people's in there.
I mean, if Pruitt had 49 blue chippers, he'd be cycling a few of these duds out of the program. So I'm gonna say 76-35.
76-35. Hey, without further ado, let's look at that.
There you go.
Let's ring
There you
the
go.
bell for Brandon again.
There you go.
Very rare. Three questions in a row, Brandon. Connor, that's a rare hot streak.
Now, I do like these questions. Anytime you ask a blue chip ratio question, I pretty much get all these right. I'm pretty good at these.
That means Georgia has signed 76 with either a 4 or 5-star rating since 2016. UT has signed up 35 of those guys, including a trio of 5 stars. So Tennessee has 3 5 stars. Brandon, can you tell me the 5 stars that are on the list?
Yeah, it's Morris, it's Darnell Wright, and it's Trey Smith. They're all 3 offensive linemen,
right? Trey Smith in the 2017 class, excuse me. And then they got 2 last year.
Yeah, Morris and Wright. They're all 3 offensive linemen.
One of those was not that. The other 5-star, I believe, unless he lost he may have lost his shine late, but it was Quadarius Crouch. Remember that name?
Okay.
The running back athlete hybrid out of North Carolina. I don't think Darnell was a 5-star.
Okay.
Wanye was a 5-star.
Fair enough.
Tennessee's got 3. That's 2 more than the Florida Gators, right?
That's true.
Number 6, we delve in a little bit of culture because we want to be sophisticated.
All right.
Which one of these 2 packs?
I do like these questions. I do like these.
Have a connection.
I never understand why they're connected in pairs, but I do like them.
I try to get radical with some of them. Famous people will be listed in 2s for this category. Which 2 are not linked to Knoxville, Tennessee?
So I'm pretty sure that even though his name is Johnny Knoxville's probably not from Knoxville. Kenny Chesney is linked to Tennessee, but he's also been linked to everyone else as well. Sam Houston, the Texan, put a pin in that for a second. Captain Lou Albano, that's good. Christina Hendricks, the gal from Mad Men, big fan.
I knew you'd like that.
Big fan. Woody Page did go to Tennessee. Dave Ramsey's a big Vols fan, I know that. Dina Carter, the country music singer. Kid Rock's from Michigan. So which are 2 not linked? I would want to say Rock. So I guess I have to say Dina Carter. But I want to say Tarantino as well. I mean, Kid Rock, I know for a fact is from Michigan. Did he go to school at Tennessee? Did he go to school, period? Somehow I don't really see him as college material.
Could have played his first gig in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Who's Johnny? I'm going to say it's Johnny Knoxville and Quentin Tarantino, although part of me wants to say Dina Carter and Kid Rock. But Johnny Knoxville and Quentin Tarantino. That's what I'm going to say. Hugh says E.
Eric Smith says E. Hugh
Robert
Jazz
Barnes says E.
E. Jeremy Shipe says A. Bama Boy's got E.
Like you'd think Dina Carter being a country singer would have a connection to Tennessee. That just seems like it would make some sense. But Kid Rock is, like I said, he's from Michigan. So I'm saying, what I'm saying. So it is Dina Carter and Kid Rock.
Kid Rock is not connected.
How did you land on Dina Carter?
She's actually
Deanna Carter.
Deanna Carter, who I didn't know this, but she had a big song called "Why Did I Shave My Legs for This" or something like that.
Yeah, she's a pretty popular country singer.
She's actually from Knoxville. Quentin Tarantino.
Well, then she does have a connection to it. Then
which 2, Brandon? Which 2?
But if she's from Knoxville, she does have a connection.
Yeah, but Kid Rock does not have a connection.
That doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense?
There are 2 packs. So one of those was a poison pill. One of them was a Trojan horse in that question. The remainder of these categories.
I know this is tedious. I got to see the question again because I don't think the question makes sense. Can I see the question one more time? Just one more time. Which 2 are not linked to Knoxville, Tennessee? Dina Carter is from Knoxville.
Yeah, but one of them is linked to Tennessee, not 2. Which 2?
Okay, I'm just going to give up on this. There's no way that makes sense. But
Johnny Knoxville and Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino is from Knoxville.
Is he really? I didn't know that.
Johnny Knoxville is actually from Knoxville. Kenny Chesney was a Vol. Sam Houston, correct. Captain Lou Albano. We always try to work in one wrestling reference for Brandon.
I do like that.
You folks did learn how big of a fan.
So what's Christine Hendricks? What's her connection?
She's from Knoxville, Tennessee.
Good for her.
And
Good for her.
You hear Brandon is maybe not so much a fan of redheads, but at least he's a fan of the Mad Men show.
Well, I like Christine Hendricks just fine.
There you go. Dave Ramsey, Woody Page, we got a media guy and 2 media guys in there. And Deanna Carter from Knoxville, Tennessee. Kid Rock not from Tennessee.
All right, let's put 3 minutes on the clock. We'll knock out some hurry up here on the YouTube side of things for a moment. Memphis Dog says I threw the flag for the instant replay. I lost my timeout. Pretty sure that one didn't make sense, but I'm just going to move on from that. TM says BA does not like to lose. No, that is true. BA he definitely does not like to lose. Over here on Facebook here for a moment. Peter Jeffrey Wilson says BA ain't crazy. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for sticking up for me. Kathy Aquavia Green says one more reason not to like Kenny Chesney. The other thing is, Kenny Chesney's he's essentially like the Ric Flair, a Drake of like country music. He's kind of been on everybody's side at one point in time. Although I think authentically he's probably a little closer to being a Tennessee fan.
Who showed up more around the Tennessee program? Who showed up more around the program? Rick Flair around Georgia or Kenny Chesney around Tennessee?
Probably Chesney for Tennessee is probably getting that. Flair, that's kind of a recent development for him. John Benton says, thank you for getting rid of the buzzer. I think the problem, John, is I'm just getting so many questions right now. We don't have a chance to play the buzzer anymore. Chris Brandon says, reading comprehension, Brandon. I'm telling you right now, we don't have time for me to argue this point. It's becoming tedious, but there's no way.
We'll reword that question for all parties in following weeks.
John Benton says that Kid Rock does live in Nashville now. By the way, no one's talking about recruiting at all. There's not a single recruiting thing here at all. It's all about all this stuff. Benevolent Zoo says, who is the BPA from players that just missed the top 10? What does BPA stand for?
Best player available.
Okay, good. Good job for you. Good job by you on that. Who's the best player available?
Elias Ricks is definitely the BPA on that board, but I would put Don Chaney as a close second. Also factoring in the need there as well, everybody on that board. And then I would go Arian Smith as the third guy on that one.
Zach Smith says I need to wear an Eddie costume for Halloween. The good news is we actually have an Eddie costume. Now, the mask will fit over my head. The suit itself, I'm not quite so sure that's going over the old body these days.
Interesting that the mask still fits over your head these days.
Yeah, if anything, you'd think my big head would be too big, but unfortunately it's everything below the neck that's too big at the moment. Devo Stricko says, does Blaylock lose playing time with Kyrus Jackson returning? I do think that'll be an interesting competition. I think Blaylock's on the field, but that's an interesting competition.
I'd like to see how folks feel about this. Connor and I were chopping this up pre-show in the studio. Does Kyrus Jackson's appearance and ability to be up this week, does it cut into Blaylock's minutes or Demetrius Robertson's minutes?
I think the three of those together, kind of in that same category right now, will be worth paying attention to. By the way, Hugh says, I get my hairstyle from Don Draper, the lead character in Mad Men. My hair's not wet enough to be Draper's, although, listen, sense of style, I don't mind the way that Draper was doing it on Mad Men. That's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Brandon may or may not have a corner of his office that resembles the corner of Don Draper's office. Glasses that like to go clink. That's what a big star like him deserves these days.
Beast Mode says, I hope that Georgia can finish off Alabama. We need to finish the big game this year. Boy, a lot of Georgia fans, no matter what you want to say, they are waiting for those big games to come later on in the year, and maybe nothing bigger than an SEC championship.
Yeah, that's going to be the penultimate game. Doesn't matter what Georgia does. You got to feel that they're gonna win the East and get there. But for a recruiting question to finish up on.
But hold on before you get to that. Look too much to says BA take the Florida Auburn under. What's the under for that right now? Do you know? Anybody know? Anybody have any idea? You don't have to look it up. It's fine. But he says take the under. It's probably a pretty good play, all things considered. Probably a pretty good play.
What would you set the under if you had property in the desert and you lived out west and you were setting the over-under for Florida Auburn? What would you put there?
About 46, 47, something like that. You think even lower than that?
I think the number might be 38 or something like that.
Interesting. You have a recruiting point you want to make before we go?
Recruiting point we want to make before we go is I think the second quarterback is a reality right now in this class. Just look at the numbers with guys moving on. You got to protect against Fromm. Be very interesting what happens in the whole month of December because I don't think Georgia will attract graduate transfer type quarterbacks.
Why is that?
Until the decision is out there on Fromm.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much clear. And then should Georgia keep winning, Brandon, it could get very dicey because we're rational people here. There's no way Fromm will share a decision about what he's going to do until after January.
That's probably true. Eric Smith says, which defensive tackle has the best game against Tennessee? That's a great question. Boy, I like the way this group's playing a little bit right now. You can put
love the way
White in that category.
I love the way Devontae Wyatt's playing right now. He's due. He's been chopping wood. He's been right there knocking on the door for a lot of games, always around the quarterback. One point I want to get to make sure our program is factually accurate as an ombudsman here. There's one more Tennessee recruit, which gets their ratio up to 4 5-stars.
Okay.
We got to remember the 5-star transfer, Aubrey Solomon. He didn't sign. He wasn't a signee, but that is indeed another 5-star on the roster.
Enough. Hey, thanks for being here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Of course, Jeff will have you, as I said before, in the forum all week, forum.dognation.com, the website, dognation.com. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for Dog Nation Daily. Hope you can join us for that as well. Y'all have a great day. We will look forward to speaking to you then.